Dear Pro Wrestling, this is the world's most dangerous podcast, and as the world's most dangerous game, I gotta put you on game like only I can. And some people aren't gonna like the things that we're about to say on this podcast, and quite frankly, we don't give a damn because that just means this ain't for you. This is for the people who want to grow, who want to know, and who want to get through this professional wrestling. This is for the people who understand we are not your financial advisors, we are not your life coaches, we are you succeed. And I'm not here by myself. I am with the chaos gremlin Kevin Kalloway himself, and this is Dear Pro. We're trying to reach out to the people we're trying to reach, the people that we are trying to lock up and lock in with. Let's be like Darkwing Duck and let's get dangerous. So Kevin, what we talking about today, fam?
Ooh, Paragon, today we are talking the politics of the business. And for those who might not know the terminology of that, basically politicking in the business is kind of playing the business waltz in the back, and when to kind of do things and when to not do things. So I'll hop right into it. And I'm going to pass this right back to you, Paragon. Paragon, when is it a good time to start saying yes to these politickings and some of the things that could potentially happen?
So, from my perspective, because we can only talk about our own experiences, right? Mm-hmm. For me, there are certain times in the business where if you don't know how to play the game, you're going to get lost in the shuffle. You can be a great wrestler. You can have a great look. You can be a very respectful person, but you can also be too nice. And if you don't play the game, sometimes you will end up getting played. Sometimes you're going to have to say yes and no to stuff. Sometimes someone's going to try to latch on to you. They may see your potential. Hey, you want to form a tag team? This company right now doesn't have a tag team right now that's reliable. You're here every single show. I'm going to be here every single show. Why don't we pitch them us tagging together? But it's political. The politics of it is, I want to be on more shows. I want to get booked more. I want to get more eyes on me. You are someone who has a great look, but you're in a similar boat that I'm in. How can you and I come together like butt cheeks and be the shit? You feel me? It's like, how can we make this work? How can we make this happen? And that's sometimes a politics you may fall into because it's a political game. You're trying to figure out not only how you can get on a show, but how you can stay on the show. And a very easy thing sometimes people will do is, hey, you want to form a tag team? Or it may be something simple as, hey, we have this manager and we think you guys would be great together. And you may tell yourself, but I can talk. Why do I need this guy? But they want him on the show. Like between you and I, the creator of In Your House, at one point in time was a manager for me. And I was not a fan of it. I did not like the idea because one of my strong suits in this business is my mouth. Okay. I got a black belt in tongue fu, and I can cat fight. That's a different situation, but I'm just saying, I'm pretty good with my mouth.
We in similar boats on that. Like I've had a few people managing me, and they would, or actually, I ended up a manager for a lot of things when I was tagging with other people because I wasn't viewed when I was young in the business as someone who could go. So instead, I was kind of like the figurehead until they realized, oh man, he can wrestle. He can work.
He can actually work.
He doesn't just talk, but they wanted me on the show. And that's kind of how it went about.
And the thing is with Khan, I love Khan. That's family. But at first I saw it as you guys are trying to stifle me. You're trying to stop me. You're trying to keep me from being able to show what I could really do. And I think a really beautiful thing that I had to look at is I kept looking at him in a matter of, I grew up with people who needed managers, not wanted managers. Like you would even hear somebody say, oh, if that dude had a manager, he would have been farther in the business because he couldn't talk. And I'm like, well, I can talk. But then I looked at it like all of the New Day can talk, but Xavier Woods is the mouthpiece. CM Punk could talk, but when he was with Paul Heyman, they could bounce off of each other. Roman Reigns has showed every single person why he is probably one of the best talker and character actors and all that stuff in professional wrestling. But there was something about the je ne sais quoi of him and Paul Heyman together that, in my opinion, overshadowed Brock and Heyman, because Brock's physicality is what played off of Heyman. And I would say Brock was a bad promo, but he wasn't a great one. But seeing someone who could hit that switch. Yeah, much later, but the switch that Roman could hit and him and Paul could play off of each other, and it was very, very intentional and it was very good. Like, I really dug it. And that's how me and Khan wound up working. But I had to look at it as, hey, I am wanting to remain on the show, because at that point there were a lot of changes that were happening at this particular company. And I was like, I want to make sure I'm able to keep contributing, keep my spot. I wanted to be a team player. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I'm willing to play the game. You guys want me to have this manager. And it was for good reason, because the issue I had wasn't I couldn't talk. I couldn't get heat. They wanted me to be a heel, and I could not get heat. I would do dastardly dirty things and they would still cheer me because the crowd liked me. But when you put me with Khan, if you didn't hate me, you had someone to hate that was adjacent to me. You may like me, but you hate that I hang out with him. Mm-hmm. And I had to learn that was part of the game. And there was reason behind it. There was purpose behind it. I've also been put in situations where they didn't need a singles guy. They didn't need a tag team. But like you said yourself, they needed a manager. They needed someone who could talk. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's a matter of getting your foot in the door. You get your foot in the door. That's the politics of it, saying yes. Another thing with politics, there may be someone you don't like. There may be someone you're not a fan of, but they want you in their carload. They want you to get eyes on you, whatever like that. They may see something in you, but you're not a fan of them or who they are as a person. Sometimes you got to play the politics of the game, and you got to hang out with them. You got to ride with them. You got to befriend them, because a lot of the politics of professional wrestling is not what you know. It's who you know.
And actually, that brings up something that came up that I've run into a lot recently, is that politicking, it never happens in the ring. It always happens outside of it.
Yes.
And if you're invited to after parties, if you're invited to dinner, like,
this
is
yes.
where the game is played, say yes. Those are the spots where you get the booking. Everything you just did in the ring, as long as you did your job, you're get fine. To stay. But that doesn't mean you're going to get booked later.
And that doesn't mean that you're going to have upward trajectory. I will admit this. So for people who are watching this, I don't judge you. I say this with, just all full transparent, full stop honesty. I'm straight edge. I've never drank in my life. I've never smoked in my life. I don't gamble. My vice is sex. That's my vice. That's what I like to do. That's why I got that black belt in Tung Fu. But
Tung Fu.
Exactly. Mr. 23 positions and 1,000 submissions for a reason. But because I don't drink, I would get invited out to after parties all the time, and I would always say no. I did not realize that was getting me heat, because I don't have to go there and drink, but I do have to go there and network. A big part of professional wrestling is networking. There gets a point, I want to say, when somebody hits between year 5 and year 8, where they're tired of traveling and showing up and showing face at places. You got to cut that habit, because that's when you go somewhere and you politic. That's where you go somewhere and you watch the show. You see what's missing, and you see how you can be what contributes to filling the void of what's missing. Oh, they don't have enough tag teams, or a solid tag team, a good babyface tag team, a good heel tag team, a monster tag team, whatever may have you. Now you politic your way in there. Oh, they don't have a babyface that's a comedy act, or a babyface that has that good fight, that fire, or this or that. You politic your way in there. Oh, they don't have a heel that makes you want to stab them. Yeah, but you have to politic your way in there. And one of the easiest
we don't have stab you in the parking lot heat, then we're not hot enough.
We're not doing our job. We're not doing our job. But that's what comes with that whole networking aspect of it. And that's why you got to say yes to showing up and showing face. Say yes to helping set up and tear down. Say yes to hopping in carloads with no guaranteed pay. Say yes when an opportunity is given to you, but be mindful of the things you say yes to, because sometimes you will say yes to something and it will hurt you. And sometimes you'll say yes to something and you may not see the immediate results of it, but there's long-term effects. Because I will say there are places that I'm thriving at right now that I said yes to something, and it wasn't until maybe 3-4 years later that I saw the payoff of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
And I kind of
there still was a
it kind of
payoff. And sometimes that's saying yes to. But I was going to ask you, Kevin, when it comes
yeah.
to also the saying yes to certain things in the political game of it, what are some things that you feel like people don't realize you have to say yes to? Like we talked about the networking and going to the
Right.
after parties. We talked about certain opportunities that may arise. What are some things that you feel like people don't realize or that we might have been missing in that saying yes?
I think this is a big one because I see this ran into a lot with people who are between 1 and 4 years in the business. After that, I actually see people more malleable to this. But about 1 and 4 years in the business, people are starting to get their persona down. Like they feel like they know who they are in the ring. Whether they do or not, they feel like they are. So when they're offered an opportunity to do something different than what they've been doing, let's say a whole new persona,
Yeah,
they'll
yeah.
say no. I urge you to say yes. And the reason I urge you to say yes is twofold. One, it puts you in with that person because you're doing something for them that's different. They know it's different. They know it's not you, but they see you as something that someone who could bring it to life. So they're trusting you with that. But the second part of it is even if that specific like persona doesn't end up fitting you, embodying it is helpful in helping you create what does and doesn't work. So you can add that to the other personas, or maybe it does work and now you got a new thing. Like
It can help you develop. It can
it
help you
just helps you
develop.
think about things more. And like if it worked for you, cool, you can put it into something else. And if it didn't work for you, cool, you know that something doesn't work. But if you say no to it, you'll never discover those specific things. And then that becomes a larger issue over time.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of times people, they like things to come easy and they don't understand how hard that can be, especially when you've been doing this for a while. Like
Mhm.
I get bored sometimes with wrestling when I don't feel like I'm getting a challenge.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes people will pitch you something, and because you know yourself so well, it's really you think you know yourself so well.
That's the one.
Whether you are just a regular schmegular person or you are a wrestler yourself, you are growing to someone new every single day. You are not who you were yesterday. You are somebody different. You know new things. You experience new things. You have to grow. You have to evolve or perish. And sometimes you need that challenge of trying something new and trying something different, because it also allows you to realize that every single audience is different. And so maybe doing something outside of your norm and your comfort zone at worst. Now you know if I'm in front of another audience like this, I now know what to do in front of this audience. And I can be a version of me instead of being me.
Yeah, and we run into that every year now with or at least the 2 years that we've ran it so far with Electric Forest, because when I book people, I tell them straight up, like, you are probably not going to be what your persona is. I've never had anyone turn me down, but I am fully prepared that someone will. And that's an opportunity that they just missed to go there, do something different at a different festival, to learn a new audience of people who aren't wrestling fans, or if they were probably jaded wrestling fans that got turned away. Now you've got something different and a different embodiment. We had a clown that threw trash at people for 2 years. And like that got over as fuck as a heel. And the dude who was doing it at first was like, "Well, I don't know if I can do it under a mask." He killed it. We brought him back a second year. So like there's different ways to really get this down and take these opportunities and try these different things. it's a magical business if you allow it to be and see the opportunity in a lot of stuff.
Most definitely, most definitely. So I want to ask you something. We're talking about things to say yes to. We're briefly touched things to maybe say no to. But what are some things you feel like not only whether you're up and coming or been here for a while, things in the political game to say no to, whether it's helping your stay power, or helping yourself as a performer, yourself as an athlete, yourself as a human being, and what are some ways to navigate those politics, even if it's your personal experience or experiences you've heard from others? What are some ways to navigate throughout these politics to allow yourself to have that stay power?
So I preach this a lot, and it's going to come up so many times during this. I guarantee, like, I could find a way to tie it to almost every episode, I'm sure. But one of the biggest things for me is, even in looking at politics adjacent to like the country's politics, stay off of social media with your opinions. It doesn't need to be there. Don't do it there. It only works to harm your business. And if you're politicking openly out there, you're going to get, it's going to end up getting misconstrued. It's going to end up taking one way. It's going to end up averting another base. Like, don't do that. Stay off social media just for business purposes is where you should be there. Promote your stuff,
Yeah,
promote yourself, everything. But
and just to branch off of that real quick, just so people understand when we talk about politicking on social media, sometimes politicking is also the why won't people book me?
yep.
Sometimes politicking is you're sleeping on me. I'm slept on. Sometimes politicking is those woe is me victim posts because all you're telling me is, oh, so other people don't want to book you, so why should I? Or you're telling me, oh, you're unprofessional. Another thing that we should probably talk about when it comes to politicking, signal boosting.
Mm-hmm.
When there's a trend of something's wrong and you want to jump on the train of we're going to get on that, yeah, you're pretty much looking like you're just trying to be a part of the in crowd and either get heat off of yourself or you're trying to stay in a certain conversation that makes you look better. You never know who's watching. You never know who's looking at stuff. There are so many times I have heard people had tryouts with the WWE and they did very, very well. And then WWE pulled up social media posts, whether it was commenting on what somebody's doing at WWE, whether it is you made this comment about this one person on your post and that looks unprofessional, or the why won't anybody take a chance on me? Be very mindful because if you are a non-wrestler, then yes, social media can be your diary if that's what you want.
Yep.
But when you're in this business, social media is a part of your job. That is your flyer. That is your advertisement. That is what you use to promote yourself. It's no longer your diary because you're no longer the person, the human being. And honestly, you're not the wrestler either. You are the product. Like, how would you feel if one of your favorite brands, is out here talking about I just wish more people would buy Johnson & Johnson baby oil that's not P. Diddy. I just wish more people would buy us. I'm just tired of giving all this money to P. Diddy. I just want somebody else to buy Johnson & Johnson. You guys are out here buying, the Vaseline brand. And I think, okay, now you sound like a bunch of crybabies, and now I really don't want to buy you.
Right.
So look at it that way. Look at it as your favorite brand and your favorite, product is going on social media complaining that they're not getting enough customers. It doesn't make you want to buy them more.
And you know what? You mentioned navigating those politics. And I think this aspect is very difficult for people to kind of understand within their head, because in this business, we're almost embodying two people. It's almost like we're doing split personalities. Like,
yeah,
yes,
we are
that
Jekyll
is
and Hyde.
Us in the ring, but that's Hyde. We have a Jekyll part.
Yeah.
And it's represented completely as Hyde basically in any public setting that you can possibly get to a wide stream audience. Like, I get that we have our jobs, whether you're a teacher, a mechanic, or, whatever the case may be, while you're working up in this business and trying to get, to the contract or, make money off the business so you don't have to be on those jobs. But that's the time when you're you. Like, there's a difference between the two Kevins, because my real first name is Kevin, but there's a difference between the last names. Like when I'm embodying my last name or I'm embodying Kalloway, those are two different things.
Which I definitely think we need to probably have an episode where we talk about balancing Jekyll and Hyde.
Oh my
because
God,
because there's some people who they don't know when to turn it on, and there's some people that don't know when to turn it off. And I feel like that also, it doesn't just affect you in the business; it affects you in your real life.
Yeah.
I've been a victim of it. I've had people who they fell in love with Paragon, but they didn't know the person behind it. And mind you, me and Paragon are one and the same. It's not a gimmick; it's a persona. It's an extension of me. It's me plus. We are a brand, and at the same time, though, sometimes I want to take off the fur coat.
Yeah.
Sometimes I want to be able to take off, the battle beads. I want to be able to just be me outside of the ring. And some people don't understand that difference. So that we're going to talk about that definitely one episode.
Yeah, that's got to be a whole episode because that's going to be a long one.
Oh, yeah, because there's so much you have to touch. But one thing I feel like when it comes to navigating politics is sometimes you got to know when to shut the fuck up.
Oh, my God, yes.
and it's layers to that. Like, honestly, that could be an episode within itself. But I'm going to say this when it comes to, we talked about networking. When it comes to the politics of stuff, sometimes you have to know when to be quiet in that carload. Sometimes you have to know when to be quiet in the locker room and hear what's being said. Because, a real easy way to politics sometimes is politic by listening to people calling their matches.
Yep.
Politic to, I'm hearing so many people are doing this. And so, hey, I'm not going to do that. Or you hear somebody call this, hey, that's actually my finisher. Can you not do that in your match? Like having people respect the art form and the moves and the way that we do stuff, But it comes from being quiet. If you're always the one talking, you're always going to miss something. You're always not going to hear something that's being said. And then also sometimes you're getting feedback.
Yep.
And I will tell you this, I have gotten opportunities because I listened to feedback and didn't talk. I've seen people lose opportunities because they butted too many damn times. And I get it because sometimes somebody doesn't understand something.
And it's okay to ask questions. So just to clarify as well, like, but and asking a question, two different things.
Two different things.
Because the question is, hey, I'm not quite understanding what you mean. So how can we clarify? Can you come up with another analogy? Like anything like that. You're just asking for clarification.
And also be mindful of those questions too, though. And I will say, because sometimes, how did this look? Sometimes make someone think you're trying to put yourself over, not like, hey, I tried this for the first time tonight. Did it look good? Did it look sloppy? Like there are ways to get the feedback you want without sounding like a dick. Because some of these veterans already feel like, in their mind, I'm already gracing you with my time and my words. I took the time and energy to watch your match and pay attention, which, to be honest with you, I get that they feel that way, but they shouldn't. Because for one, everyone should be watching every single match if possible, so they know what not to do again, not to copy whatever may have you.
Yeah.
But if you truly care about this business, it shouldn't be a headache for you to try to grow the business and the company you're on and the show you're on to be better for the show. So we talk a lot about some of the wrestler interactions, but I want to ask you, what are some examples of not only saying yes or no, but navigating politics with the promoter and the booker?
Ooh, and that's a really important one too. So again, an easy way, we were talking about after parties and things like that. A good way to politic your way through with a promoter, there's always sponsors. There are always sponsors if it's a promoter that's trying to do like good business. There's always going to be some kind of sponsors for the show. If you can find a way to put over the sponsors or just go support the sponsors, put over the sponsors. And again, this comes back to the social medias. Like you can do that. Those are things you can do in creative ways. And if you're putting over those sponsors, you're helping the show because those sponsors see those wrestlers putting over everything with their social medias. Everyone sees everything when you're tagging people, and they'll understand where it came from because they're going to ask questions. And if your name comes up as the person who's helping promote those sponsors and promote the show more, that's going to look real good for you.
And just to shout out Emerge Wrestling, for example, Emerge Wrestling has sponsors who will directly sponsor a match. And you will see certain wrestlers are the constant sponsored match by a particular sponsor. And it's because, one, what that company may believe that they bring to the table. Two, maybe you did a commercial for that company, because there are a lot of times they'll ask you to do a commercial. But three, what were your interactions with them? Sometimes they'll bring their kids to the show. What was your interactions with the kids? What did their kids think about you? That's still a political game right there. Getting in good with the sponsors helps you get in good with the company. Because let's put it like this. A lot of times you don't always see it, but you will a lot of times see it where someone is the face of the company. They're the champion. They lose and they either disappear for a while or they might find themselves way back down the card. But getting good with the sponsors, you won't disappear for a while. Your position may switch, your position may change, but those sponsors want you on that show. They're paying for your brand. It could be, let's say Paragon versus Kevin Kalloway this month, and Kevin Kalloway takes the title from Paragon. But the next month, so we want you to sponsor the Kevin Kalloway championship match against Rhino. Is Paragon on the show? Well, I mean, he might be on the show, but we want to pay for the Paragon match. And now Paragon is going to be on the match again because the relationship he's building with the sponsors. Getting good with the sponsors is a very easy way.
Yeah. And there's a show up north called Mr. Chainsaw Pro Wrestling. Big shout out to them too. Love it up there out in Kalkaska. And they have a bar that's been sponsoring their shows forever. Always run an after party. And I love going to the bar afterwards because I get to hang out with a lot of the wrestlers who I'm closer with, and I get to, just hang out. But generally, I'm also closing down the bar, and it's coming with the other caveat that there is a wrestler there supporting things and interacting with fans and doing stuff. I know it's covering two bases. I'm not just having fun with my friends in the business, but I'm also covering the base of interacting with the fans and then showing that we're bringing business in.
And another thing I wanted to talk about when it comes to the promoter, an easy way to politic is before the show starts. Hey, what do you need of me? What's the business tonight?
How can I make it easier for you?
Exactly. How can I give you what you're wanting? And then after your match is over, did I give you what you were looking for? Mm-hmm. If the answer is no, how can I do better next time? What could I have done differently? If the answer is yes, still, all right, I'm glad I was able to do that for you. Is there anything I could have done more of or better or differently? Now you just showed them you're a team player. Now you just showed them that you want to make the show better.
Yep.
And mind you, I'm not putting y'all on game as the most dangerous game so y'all can manipulate. I'm putting y'all on game so y'all can win. Don't take the stuff I'm saying as a way to try to force yourself onto or up a card, because trust and believe, we're about to have a whole episode about understanding your place on a show. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's a matter of understanding yourself, which is also, we have another episode coming on of knowing yourself and knowing your role and shutting your mouth.
Do the whole rock.
Whole rock. But you do have to definitely take the things we're saying. I won't say with a grain of salt, because these are things that we've seen that work for us and others. They may not work for you, but it also is a matter of application. Sometimes it's not a matter of what we're telling you to do. How are you doing it? And I truly believe that communicating with the promoter and making sure you're getting what you need from them, asking the promoter, can you watch my match and let me know if I'm giving you what you're wanting? But there's another way to politic that we haven't even touched on yet to navigate through. And that's politicking with the fans.
Yeah. It's a whole game of kings. It's every facet from the promoter to the ring guy to the fans. Like, the fans can get you more bookings than anything, because realistically, if you're trying to build your brand, you're already politicking with the fans because you're trying to get more and more and more involvement from them.
And you're trying to get them on the show. You're trying to get their views. You're trying to get their reactions on social media. Mm-hmm. And a lot of these wrestling companies are starting to get into the new day and age of actually making money off of social media. And so who are they going to want to book more? The person that gets 52 shares on a a video promo and so many likes and so many comments that generates actual income for their page, or the person who's a really, really good wrestler, but is either late or can't cut a promo, or they're late to do their promo, or their promo may get 20 to 200 views, maybe 15 shares of a flyer. A lot of them are the promotion and the actual wrestler themselves. They want the person that's going to help them make money before the doors even open.
Yeah, and realistically, like, there is a place for those good wrestlers who can't get the promoting out yet, and generally those are the underneath guys, where they're going to end up, because they can make someone else look good who is getting that promotion out there and who is generating the buzz, because those are the people who are going to get put into higher positions, because those are the people with dollar signs on them.
And
like
I've seen people who I've seen people who could not wrestle their way out of a shoestring, and yet because of their popularity and because of, and I will say it, their natural charisma, because sometimes just being charismatic is enough to get you on the card. You know how to be charismatic and you can bump. Okay, we can use you. And that goes back to the politicking. If you can make a fan care through your charisma and you can get through a match without hurting yourself or your opponent, so much can be forgiven because they just want to see you on the show and on the card. Now, he can actually wrestle, but I can't stand my little brother. But, you know, Mr. Todd Kilmore, whatever he's calling himself this week, he gets on my nerves. But one thing I will say about him is he is somebody who he plays the game very well, but he does it respectfully. And one way that he politics with the crowd is, and I do kind of respect him about it. I didn't even get to put him on game about this. He did it himself. Is he will go out to the crowd before the show. Like, they could be waiting in line, they could be doing whatever, and he will go out and he will say his high fives and he'll do some shtick. He'll greet with them and he makes them very excited for the show. He gets them hyped for the show before doors even open. And then this joker, the moment he comes through the curtain, they're already cheering him like he's a superstar because he already politicked his way. I'm going to make sure you know who I am before I come out. You're going to remember me from what I'm saying, what I'm doing. So that way, when my music hits and then you see my face, that's our buddy. That's our guy. We don't care who he's facing.
Yep. And honestly, you can do that not just as a face, because I feel that that's a face shtick right there.
Yeah.
Go out there, high five fans and get yourself over that way. I've seen heels be at their merch table right before the show. And generally speaking, like, faces will outsell heels and merch. Generally speaking, of course, it's not an always thing. But if you're standing out at your merch table and you're heckling insults at people, you're already getting over as a heel. There are ways to do it as a heel too.
Yeah.
Where you're very nonchalant with everyone and you be kind of an asshole in front of everyone. Then you walk back behind the curtain, then you're back to you. Like, it's all part of the game.
And here's another way to politic with the promoter. And when it comes to merchandise and all that other stuff. So one, getting together with them on merch. And what I mean by that is, let's say you're a heel and you're like, hey, if you guys go in half with me on this merchandise, I'll split the profits with you. And it can be anti-you stuff. You know, it's the, Kevin Kalloway's face with the circle and the dash around it, pretty much like saying no Kevin Kalloway, whatever, like that.
And instead of chaos, it's just a big peace sign.
Yeah, and just stuff like that pretty much is going against it. And then now you're doing stuff that way. Or being at shows where, and this is something that I can say I politic, is I have two different rates. I have my face rate and my heel rate. And somebody once asked me, why do you have two different rates? And I said, well, because when I'm a heel, I'm going to earn my money and I'm not going to sell any merchandise. Yep. Which is why to book me as a heel is more expensive, because some people play heel. I am heel. But my babyface rate is cheaper. And they're like, well, why is your babyface rate cheaper? Because normally it's hard to find a good babyface. Well, because it is up to me to make the difference in that money. It's up to me to sell that merchandise. It's up to me to do my job as a baby face that makes you want to not only bring me back, but makes them want to get out their seats and want to pay for whatever I'm selling.
Yeah. And not just that, like, if you're doing your job well as the face, like, you're going to way outdo your heel rate. And it's more
Exactly.
on a brand of like, okay, this one's up to me to get over. And it almost motivates you internally to be like, okay, like I know I'm good at my job, but today we're going. We're doing it because I have charged a lower rate for a reason, because I believe in me and my ability to sell these things.
And promoters notice that, and they'll
Mm-hmm.
see you treating yourself like a business, like a brand, because all of this is a hustle. You
Yeah,
know,
it's all
all the
hustle.
world's a stage, and all the men and women are merely players, and all of
Yep.
this is game. And we're trying to put y'all on game if y'all paying attention.
Speaking of I kind of wanted to hear your thoughts on this, because we spoke about it a little bit before we went through. Is in this politicking, it's when to be a part of this team, when to start making these pitches and really get these ideas out there to promoters, to people.
So I will say, when it comes to being a part of the team with the politicking, we kind of talked about it a little bit. There's going to be times they're going to pitch you something that you do not like, or they're going to tell you some business that maybe y'all didn't agree on. And sometimes you just have to be a team player and hope that something good comes out of it. Um, I have been pitched things before that I straight up felt like, as Paragon, that doesn't make sense. As Paragon, I would not do that. Or, man, we have been building this up very, very big. We've been putting so much work in, and it feels like that's being cut off. And sometimes you have to not only look at the bigger picture, but you also have to look at the show as a whole. And you have to look at, this isn't about me, it's about the show.
Yep.
And right now in this moment, they're asking me something on behalf of the show. I have to take a step back and consider what is going to be better for the show and not what's going to be better for me. Also, another time when it comes to politics and being a team player, there may be a move that you do and you do very, very well, and it might be your signature, but somebody else on the show does it too. And maybe they are either more established on that show, or maybe they need this. An example I give is, I have been doing an ankle lock since I started in the business. That has always been a move that I've done. And I now do this thing where I give you a spine buster and I stack you up for a pin. And if for some reason you kick out, I'm automatically transitioning to an ankle lock. Well, there's a guy on the show, and he is a collegiate wrestler, and he does an ankle lock for his finish. And he was, I want to say, like match 2 or 3 on the card, and I'm the main event. Now, I could say, well, I could keep the ankle lock because they've seen me do it. I've established it. I've won with it. But at the same time, though, being a part of the team says, let them have the ankle lock tonight. There's something else that I can do instead. There's something I can do in place of it, because it's not about me. It's not about my ego. It's about the show.
And in that moment too, like who needs it more? Does the collegiate wrestler need the ankle lock more? Or does the guy who can win with multiple things need it more?
And that's my point too. Like, I have established in professional wrestling, I have an arsenal that I can beat you with, which is funny because around the time I was establishing that, Gunther was showing, on WWE a similar thing. But my thing is, yeah, I have an arsenal I can beat you with. And so, does it hurt me that you used a weapon in my arsenal versus if you used, let's say, my killing blade?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I do believe in wrestling. We all have that. No, this is my finisher. This is I'm ending the match with this. I've been ending matches with this. You're not using this. You're not taking this away from me. But if you do have other moves that you can do, or other moves that you do, what is it to you? How does it affect or hurt you to take one thing off? Like, it doesn't hurt
Especially in that
Superman.
moment on that one show, like, does it
Yeah.
hurt you that much?
Yeah. It
Are
doesn't
you
hurt
even
Superman to
winning?
let
Do you need to
Cyclops
use
use.
it?
Yeah,
Like,
it doesn't hurt Superman for Cyclops to use his heat vision. You feel me?
no. Superman's got like cold break. Superman's got a million things in his arsenal. He can give Cyclops the heat vision today.
Yeah,
And
but
I think that brings up another point, and I'm sure we'll touch on this in another episode too, but really making sure that you have an arsenal of moves is very
yeah,
important in wrestling, because you're going to run into these situations, and you're going to run into things where maybe you do the finisher, better than the person who is there. Maybe it looks better coming from you. It won't matter at that day. You can establish it another day. You might be the first person, you might be first match on that card and you haven't been there before and you're just taking the L, but you really wanted to use that move. But the main event guy does it too. And I'm a believer that it doesn't, I think people are too much sticklers around my area for like who's got this finish, who uses this finish. I don't care about that. But if we're on the same show, we had better not have the same finish to the match. And that's
for
more
me,
looking at the card.
And for me, when it comes to the politicking too, be an adult and have a conversation.
Have a conversation.
Go up to them and be like, hey, like, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? There is a tag team that I'm forming with Pastor CeeLo out of the Northeast Ohio area.
Yeah.
And he and I were going to have a tag team called Church Money. And the issue is Black G's, who's been wrestling, for a while now, and he's, a legend in the indie scene. His nickname is The Church's Money. Ooh. And so I had a conversation with him and was like, hey, would you feel like I'm stepping on your toes if I say this? And it doesn't take much to reach out to someone and have an adult conversation. Now we're pray for pray, PRAY for PREY, which actually I think works better.
Yeah, actually.
But it took a conversation being had. And that's the issue is too many people don't want to have these conversations. But now I want to lay something up to you because we talked about, being a part of the team. What's the time for us to stand up for ourselves? When's there a time for us to say like, hey, nah, this isn't going to work for me, or nah, I'm not going to do that. Like I can give you an example of I worked for a company for a while that I loved working for. And I got to a point where I'm like, hey, I'm your baby face. I'm the face of your company. My last 6 wins have been via schmoz. I don't look like the strong baby face you're supposed to be building me as. I have to start getting wins that mean something and are me winning. And that was a moment where I had to stand up for myself because I'm not even just looking at me as the champion, as the face, as the whatever. I'm looking at the show. I'm looking at the company, and I'm looking toward the future of if you beat me for this title, well, of course you beat him because he only won when there was schmoz. But when you can watch me overcome someone, and when you can watch me beat someone, when you can watch me beat someone you thought I could not beat, it means more versus funky finish, funky finish, funky finish, funky finish. And that's the way I had to stand up for myself,
I think another one to stand up for to me is if you see, and this is more overarching looking at the card too. So we talked about saying yes to like opportunities of getting out of your comfort zone and maybe embodying a new persona. Okay, let's say you've done that for the last 3 to 6 months and you've gotten over with it and it's starting to look good. If nothing ends up changing and you're just ending up in the same spot over and over and over and over and over again with no trajectory, just plateaued, it might be time to start looking at either pitching some ideas and really standing up for yourself that way, or potentially walking away from that opportunity and taking it somewhere else if it's working there. Because if there's no trajectory business-wise, this is the biggest hack really to me is if it stops making sense business-wise, probably stop doing it for whatever that means to you. It could be it stopped making sense business-wise because it's not working. Sure. So you need to stand up for yourself and say, hey, I'm trying something new because the stuff is too stagnant and it's not working anymore. It could be that you're standing up for yourself because something is working and you just see the same people over and over on the card and it's clear that it's getting stale and you're kind of looking at it and going, well, why don't we give this a shot or anything like that? There's too many promotions that I see that they use the same people in the same places for the entirety of ever with no change out.
And they don't change who's top of the card. They don't change who's in certain positions. And then they're wondering why are they always double, triple booked? Because you're booking in the exact same area, the exact same people in the exact same positions.
Yep. And if you're doing that and you start seeing a promotion that is doing that, I think it's either A, time to stand up for yourself, or B, time to leave.
Yes.
And I would say both are standing up for yourself in that area. You should try and play the game for as much as you can and see what you can do. But if the game isn't working, understand when it isn't. Understand when it feels like it's not going to work. And then pick up your stuff and go somewhere else. There are lots of places to go then show face to, and now you're right back. You might be at square one at a new place, but maybe the new place has a better business opportunity for you long term.
And also when it comes to standing up for yourself and maybe needing to leave in politics, when it comes to promoters and bookers, your rate.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you're going to have to say something, but also you got to learn when to say yes and say no too. Like, we're covering all these bases that we started off with, because you have to understand what you contribute to a show as well as what somebody else does.
Yep.
Are people buying tickets to come see you? Are people buying tickets to come see you wrestle?
Do
Are
they
people
see your merch out in the crowd?
Do we see your merch out in the crowd? How does the crowd react when they do see you? What is the pop you're getting? Like, these are things you really have to think about, because if you don't, no matter how good or great you think you are, or even for how far you're traveling, because that's also a thing you have to factor in too. Yeah, you may be traveling 3 hours while somebody else is traveling 1 hour, but in your 3 hours of travel, you have 7 people coming to see you and they have 25.
Yeah.
And that 25 is paid tickets. It's not
Yep.
free tickets, not whatever. And those are the things you have to think about. But at the same time, if you're the one getting those 25 paid tickets, an hour to 3 hours, if you're the one that's putting butts in seats, if you see a sea of shirts of you in that crowd and people chanting your name like crazy, then you do have the opportunity to, hey, can we renegotiate my rate? Or, hey, I've been coming in for this rate for this long. Like, can I get a raise? Can we talk about what I can do to earn that? Where do you see my value? I had to sit down with a company that I love one time and ask them, where do you see me in the company? Where do you see me in the company in the next 1 to 3 years? And the reason I had this conversation was because I had other bookings I would have to turn down that were good opportunities to work for them. And I was like, hey, this is what I'm doing, and I've been prioritizing you guys for a long time. I want to have this conversation so that way I don't feel like my efforts are in vain.
Yeah, because you want to make sure that, like, whenever you're putting that in and you can prove it, I would always go somewhere if you're going to do something and try and pitch a business and politic into more stuff. You have to come with proof. You have to come with proof, because otherwise you're just speaking into the wind. If you can't
It's not
prove
what
anything,
you know, it's what you can prove.
It's what you can prove, or it's what you can assuage people into believing, as in some people's cases. But that's neither here nor there. If you come with proof and you come with something that you can say, hey, I am clearly bringing these people in, I see my merch on them every single time, that's when you can really start looking at your rate. Because otherwise, and you know what, there actually is, before I get to the otherwise, there's another way to prove it too. Because as faces, you're generally going to look at the crowd and how much merch is there. Like, these are the merch people, these are the people that like me, I'm the babyface. But as a heel, there's another way to prove it. And that's how over the babyface is feuding with you.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're doing your job as a heel, time in and time out when you're in these programs, and they keep making more and more money, that's proof.
Yes.
And you can say, hey, like, I don't sell any merch, but boy, are they.
Yeah.
And it's clear that you can put me with anyone and I'll make their value go up. So if you're making someone else's value go up simply by how good you are doing, that's also proof.
And another thing when it comes to politics and the business, and we are running a little bit low on time, but definitely something I want to address, especially because, and this may mean we need to do a part 2 on this as well. You know,
Right.
we got a lot of stuff we want to put you on game with, but if you want to really learn how to play this game in politics, if you feel like you should be in different or better positions, have ideas and pitches ready for the bookers and promoters. I talked about earlier about the saying yes to certain opportunities, and the guy that's saying like, hey, we should be a tag team. Guess what? He's now the idea person pitching that to the promoter. Yep. It's up to you to come with them with ideas, come to them with, hey, I think we should do this. We should try this. I have this idea. I have that idea. But a lot of times people just show up to the show wanting something for them. You know, I had a tag partner, and because of how he was trained, he was like, I want the promotion to book me into a feud, and that's how I'll find out my gimmick. And I'm like, that's not how that works in the current day and age of wrestling. They want you to come to them a finished product that they can either use, plug and play, or mold from what's already there. You have to have ideas, and having ideas of put me in a feud or put me in a match. Well, why are you guys feuding other than you just wrestling to wrestle? Because if I have this guy and his gimmick is, I am a cow, I'm a human cow person, and your clothes show that you have a lion with a crown on it, but what does that mean? What's your persona? What's your gimmick? Then what are we doing here, and why are we doing it?
And really coming with those ideas makes and we talked about this a little bit, it makes the booker's job easier, because if you come with the idea, maybe it's not an idea that works right now. But boy, if you come with that idea and then it starts marinating, maybe 3 months from now, maybe 6 months from now, they've got a good spot for it to work.
And this may not be for you, but I know I didn't mind it. I came to a booker for an idea. He gave that idea to somebody else and then put me a part of the creative development team. And now I'm getting more money in my envelope because now I'm helping come up with ideas for storylines and feuds, because I'm paying attention to my locker room instead of just worrying about my part,
Well, and I have positions like that these days too. And even agenting makes politicking easier, because you're helping put together matches for people who don't, maybe they're new and maybe they just need the business given to them or whatever. And agenting helps you learn more of those things and politic a little bit more if you have that capability.
Exactly. And like, if you're going to come with an idea, though, do come correct. Understand who you are in wrestling. Understand your place in wrestling and the card. If you have literally been a comedy gimmick your whole career and you've been the under guy, you're going to have a hell of a pitch as to why you need to be the company's heavyweight champion.
Yeah.
Or if you've, it's going to, and always going to have to be a journey, but it also has to make sense, because there are times where people are like, well, based off of my roster, I don't see you in that position. Give them a reason. Give them a pitch. And don't always give them examples of what works somewhere else, because that's also somewhere else with a different audience, different crowd, different locker room.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let them know based off of this, don't see what you're actually bringing to the table. And I mean, I've been in situations where I've pitched storylines and it wasn't even just for championships, because that seems to be everybody's like go-to, like, oh, I want the title.
Yeah.
I'd rather have match of the year than title for the night.
And you know what? I'll take mine further. I would rather do good business for me and my brand than worry about a title or even a match of the night.
I mean, that's
my first and foremost.
I would rather be the person that this promoter is willing to vouch for and be a reference and recommendation. And I got money in my envelope from both
that's the business,
from the booker and the audience. And I have people showing love and things like that, because the way my envelope is set up, I'd rather have that than, oh, well, I got the title. Because there have been times I've been champion from someplace and I was also the least paid person on that roster.
Yep.
And then there have been places where I was the new person on the roster that night, but I was the highest paid person.
Yep.
Understand your place, know your role, And it all comes down to being able to bring them ideas, because if you make their life easier, then that's also less stuff they have to worry about, which also gives them a reason to want to also give stuff to you, because you're giving them ideas and they want to put their flavor into your ideas and to make things make sense.
They also have more faith when they put you in those higher positions to be able to come up with something creative.
Exactly.
Like, hey, we want you to work with this guy. What do you got for me? Okay, let me think for a day. You come up with some ideas and then you pitch those.
So you got any wrap-ups for us before we get out of here, Kev?
I think the too long didn't read really big piece of advice for me is when it comes to politicking, make sure the business is right for you and your brand first and foremost, but also make sure that that is helping the card so that you understand that and stand up for yourself in the times that you need to.
Yeah, what I would say is love the business, not just your place in it.
Yep.
A lot of egos are why politicking and wrestling is looked very poorly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because people are politicking for them and not for the card, the show, the roster, the company. You do have to stand up for yourself. You have to know when to say yes. You have to know when to say no. Navigating is difficult. And sometimes finding a mentor or maybe a podcast that can help you through that is a very easy way. We're also going to be having a link where you can ask us questions and let us know what are some things you want us to talk about on the next couple of pods we have going up, because you guys letting us know what you want us to talk about allows us to address these concerns directly.
Not only that, but some stories. If you have some stories that are coming from some of these podcasts that you hear us talk about, the politicking of the business, we might have a part 2 and we can use those stories as examples.
And we can share your experiences.
We
won't use names unless you ask us to.
Correct.
But we'll also share your experiences. But we say all this to say, as we said, we're not your life coaches. We're not your financial gurus. We are literally your coworkers that want to see you thrive and succeed. Before we get out of here, we want y'all to make sure that you guys are checking out the Sunday House Party on In Your House. You're checking out Hypocrisy Jones in the Smoke Sesh. You are checking out Window Liquors with the Voice. It is Monday Night Raw preview when you're checking those out. And then the SmackDown preview is when we have Grun's Room. And please, we are trying to get to 50K subs so we can get Grun to shave his head and tattoo it.
50K subs.
We need them 50K subs. And then make sure you check out the Raw Deal with House and O'Neal. It is where they give you the review of the show. And make sure you're showing all the love, rating us 5 stars, share, react, subscribe, do whatever y'all need to do to get this pumping. And
give it all to that In Your House network.
And really, if you're listening to this, we want you to make sure that you understand that this is a business, and all businesses are beasts and they're monsters. They want to be fed and they don't care who feeds them. Mm-hmm. If you are the person in charge of feeding this beast this day, this lifetime, whatever may have you, be careful and protect yourself. Treat the beast with respect. Try to make it better than when you found it. Because many of us, as I said, they only love their place in wrestling. They don't love wrestling itself. Do your part to make the business better. Do your part to be better in the business. Be better, not bitter. Mm-hmm. Because that is going to help us all grow. And that's what's going to make the business better at the end of the day. From Kevin Kalloway and Paragon, sincerely, dear Pro Wrestling.